In the earliest parts of the 20th century, Howard Phillips Lovecraft began crafting more than just a fictional world. Together, he and a number of correspondents would establish a library of works that would come to be known as the Cthulhu mythos. This subgenre of weird horror includes strange investigations of beings and events which human minds lack the capacity to fully understand. Arkham Diaries is a roll-to-hit gaming adventures in solo gaming production that plays through Arkham Horror, the card game by Fantasy Flight Games. We will be recording these in sequence and with the same characters. Should a character meet its final end, our story will continue with new characters carrying the story forward. Viewers interested in watching the story unfold should start with episode 1, but be careful. What is seen cannot be unseen, and some minds break before they bend.
This is your only warning. Beyond this point, you will encounter spoilers for the title scenario. There is no chance. It is inevitable. If you don't wish to have this module spoiled, stop watching and turn back immediately. You have been warned.
I declare, it's the end of a long and abnormally hot summer. The first hints of autumn beckoned, but a heavy heat persists relentless. A silent, unspoken anger grips the town. Tempers are short, and in the last week alone there have been numerous reports of townspeople coming to heated, violent blows with one another over simple misunderstandings. And now a call from James Hankerson. He claims to have found a dismembered body in his barn. Blaming the weather would be too easy. There is something wrong in this town, and not a whole lot this old soothsayer can do to stop the slide. My inner eye indicates an investigator will soon take note of these strange happenings and set forth to make things right. I'll be watching his progress, but I won't be holding my breath.
The following report was filed by Agent Roland Banks of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. This is Arkham Diaries, Episode 1, The Gathering. Everything by the book, every I dotted, every T crossed. It had worked, until now. Roland had always taken comfort in procedure and rules. As an agent in the Bureau, he was relieved to have guidelines to follow in any given situation. But lately his Federal Agent's Handbook hadn't been entirely helpful, given the cases he'd been assigned. Try as he might, Roland could find no mention of what to do when confronted with strange creatures, gates through time and space, or magic spells. If he hadn't seen them with his own eyes, he would have never believed it, and there was no way his superiors would understand. Roland knew he would have to handle this one himself. What's going on? It was late at night. I was holed up in my study researching the bloody disappearances that had been taking place in the region. A few hours into my research, I heard sounds of strange chanting coming from my parlor down the hall. At the same time, I heard dirt churning, as if something were digging beneath the floor. As I leapt to investigate, the door to my study vanished before my eyes, leaving behind only solid wall. I was trapped inside my study, and I had to find another way out. I could not explain how the door to my study could have vanished. I hadn't had a drop of liquor in hours, and hadn't eaten since midday. I went to where the door had been previously only to find blank wall. I took stock of my senses and didn't detect any abnormalities of health or ability. The door had, in fact, vanished. I searched my desk for anything that could help me solve this puzzle, but only became frustrated to find an old magnifying glass. In a moment of frustration, I swept the contents of my desktop onto the floor. This loss of self-control proved to be fortuitous, however, as the debris brought my attention to the rug, about which I noticed something odd. I noticed that the edge of my newly purchased rug were tattered and mud-stained. Finding this odd, I shifted the furniture aside and pulled back the rug. To my surprise, I saw a door leading out of the study. I slowly turned the knob and the door swung open, revealing the hallway below. I jumped through the doorway, landing on my feet on soft dirt. The door to the study slammed shut above me. The smell of burning wood filled the narrow hall, intermingling with the scent of rot and decay. A moment of panic and disorientation struck me as I landed on the floor in the hallway. The world spun as if turned on its head. The walls to my house were splattered with mud, and my hardwood floor was gone, replaced with a dirt path. A set of stairs led down to the cellar, another set up to the attic, and the entrance to the parlor was blocked by a darkly glowing, unfathomable barrier. I was unable to move into the parlor. I was unsure what would happen if I tried to cross the threshold of the strange barrier. Based on its extreme heat, I sure as hell didn't want to try. I felt a growing dread as I witnessed my house change before me. A supernatural cold threatened to freeze me where I stood. So sudden was the drop in temperature that the lens of the magnifying glass cracked. Seeing nothing of value in the hallway, I moved to the cellar. The stairs leading down to the cellar were slick, and they glistened with a thin layer of ice. I lost my footing, and I was sent sprawling down the stairs, landing hard in this alien place of cold and bones. My cellar seemed to have been replaced with an underground network of icy tunnels and caverns. The cold chilled me to the core. The space was dark, so I reached for the flashlight I'd gathered from my study. Aiming the light into the frigid cellar, the shadows seemed to move as I noticed thick shards of ice strewn about. The constant sound of digging became louder, and suddenly a swarm of rats scurried out from behind the ice, mad to attack me. A horde of cruel rats skittered forth in an undulating wave of claws, teeth, and mottled fur. Reaching into my coat, I pulled my knife and stabbed at the hungry rodents. After slashing and stabbing a number of them, the swarm fled, and not wishing to remain, I made my way back to the hallway above. My house continued to change before my very eyes. The walls had decayed, and the ground in many rooms had turned to dirt. It was almost as if I had been transported somewhere else entirely, although every now and again I recognized elements of my former home. My house continued to change, and my mind, normally accustomed to observation and analysis, was disconcertingly muddled. The floor beneath me was giving way, and I saw a vast network of tunnels twisting into the darkness below. Shapes and silhouettes of strange creatures moved swiftly through the tunnels, trying to find a way up. I didn't want to be there when they did. I quickly moved to the attic, only to confront a scene of viscera. The smell of rotten meat assaulted my nostrils as I approached the attic stairs. The bloody carcass of a malformed beast swung from a meat hook chained to the ceiling. Blood drained slowly from the carcass, dripping into a small barrel. My mind reeling, it was all I could do to continue my investigation. Immediately I saw what I needed to chance an escape. Grabbing the barrel, I quickly ran back into the hallway. Dark forces stirred against me. If I didn't act quickly, a sinister plot would be fulfilled. Still, the dread grew closer, and I was becoming fearful for my life. Suddenly, I heard a familiar sound as my dog Blue Boy darted into the hallway. The dog was a welcome surprise as I was desperately trying to disable this strange barrier between the hallway and the parlor. Using the barrel from the attic, I carried ice and snow from the cellar and hurled it at the barrier. The barrier sparked and shuddered as it consumed the ice, then hissed and faded out of existence. A woman with a torch stood in my parlor, a glimmer of hatred in her eyes.
"What have you done to my barrier?"
she screamed, furious. Before I could answer, a ghastly wail sounded behind me, and a creature wearing robes and a deer skull mask tore through the wall, advancing toward me. A figure in red robes wearing a bone mask. It gibbered and snarled before leaping to attack. Blue Boy growled at the creature as I threw aside my flashlight and took a second knife I had spied atop a hallway table. Desperate, I hurled the blade at the approaching ghoul. The blade sank deep into the creature's shoulder. Now, almost insane with fear, I flung the second knife at it. This one again stabbing into the horror, but it was not enough. My sanity hung by a thread as the foul creature slashed its taloned hand at Blue Boy. But the dog, being well trained, snapped forward and caught the thing by its throat. There was a wet, tearing sound and the snap of tendon, and the robed figure fell to the floor as Blue Boy and I ran into the parlor. When the robed creature fell, the fiendish swarm burrowed back into the ground, and the chaos of the house quieted. But the stranger in my parlor didn't seem relieved.
"You broke my seal that was set to trap the ghouls within.
She raised her torch.
Now we must take more direct measures and burn this hell pit to the ground."
I nodded and allowed the red-haired woman to set the walls and floor of my house ablaze. The fire spread quickly, and I ran out the front door to avoid being caught in the inferno. From the sidewalk, I watched as everything I owned was consumed by the flames.
"Come with me,"
the woman said.
"You must be told of the threat that lurks below. Alone, we are surely doomed, but together we can stop it."